Greetings, Facebook. Greetings. Just waiting for Instagram. I'm live on Instagram. Hello, everybody. I've got some lunchtime love for you today. We're going to take it a little bit more informal today. I just wanted to share. I wanted to share some stuff with you that I read today, and it just really. I just wanted to share it with you all. So, sorry, just give me a minute. Learning to thrive, and then www.heal.juneallen.net. I hope you're having a really nice lunchtime. Right, so now I can pin this. Yes, pin a comment. Okay, great. So hi, Black Love is Simply Beautiful, and hi Tamika. Lovely to see you all. Hello on Facebook, everybody. I hope you are well. My name is June Allen from juneallen.net, and I teach Black people how to heal from the impact of racism with racial sobriety and personal empowerment. So today's topic, it's not going to be as formal as I normally do it. It might be a little bit, but not going to be as formal to do it. I just had a really nice reading today, and I was quite moved by it, and I just thought I just want to share it. So instead of doing like a, more of an educational share that I normally do, I thought that I would read this instead. So before I kind of get into it, I'm just going to from the 1st to the 9th of June. It's nine year birthday, so I want to do 9 days of masterclasses, meetings, speakers, all of that kind of stuff. So if you think you might be addicted, or you know anybody else that might be an addict, then another person of colour, this is going to be a really great event. So if you click the link in the bio, heal.juneallen.net, heal.juneallen.net, heal.juneallen.net. So Black Love is Simply Beautiful is saying lunch. Oh, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon in London. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon in London, so you must be in the States. If it's 8 a.m. in there, where you are, you're in the States. So yeah, so I always forget about that. So yeah, sorry. Say good morning. If you're watching me from the States, then good morning. That's probably quite a good time to do it, actually, in the morning. I never thought of that. Yeah, so it's morning your time, and then it'll be 1 o'clock here is yeah, that works actually. I have to remember. Thank you for that. That's made me think about changing the times of my live streams to do them in the morning instead. So yeah, so that's housekeeping number 1. Housekeeping number 2 is I am doing a fathers and daughters workshop on next. I think it's the 12th of The 12th of June is the week before, the Wednesday before Father's Day in the UK. So if you click the link in the bio, you can get details on that. It's going to be all about making the link between absent fathers and how that impacts our ability to have relationships and stuff as adults. So if you're interested in that, click the link in the bio, heal.juneallen.net, heal.juneallen.net, heal.juneallen.net. And the last piece of housekeeping is that I am putting on a retreat in Ghana. And I'm doing it with my business partner Faith Agubi. She's actually going to be doing the Father's Day workshop as well. So two of us are going to be doing both of the events. So yeah, that's going to be in November. So it's going to be loads of healing, loads of cultural healing, loads of returning back to yourself, all of that kind of stuff. So if you want to come, you have to start saving up your pennies. We have to start saving up your pennies. For adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. It's a great little book on different types of meditations. Just share that for the folks on Facebook as well. Yeah, I love it. So I'm reading from it's actually yesterday's one. It's called Learning to Thrive. It says, we learn to keep our thoughts and desires close to our hearts, and that's the Big Red Book, page 431. As we grew up, it was not safe to share any part of us. When we risked being vulnerable and letting people know what we wanted, we were shamed and ridiculed, made to feel stupid for having needs at all, let alone dreams. Our struggles may have been as basic as having to keep our own clothes clean or finding food to eat. We put all our energy into surviving. By the time we were done, we had no energy to claim our birthright, the ability to dream. I'm just going to pause there for a minute. And what came up for me when I was reading that is, as for a lot of us as black people, as people of colour that are trying to get through the healing process, we're still in a situation where, we're still not allowed to share who we are. So whilst this book, and this is why I think it's important, why. One of the reasons why I'm doing the conference and why it's important for me to have these conversations about racial sobriety and stuff like that, because what I find is a lot of the stuff in recovery talks about, it's very white middle class. Recovery is very white middle class. So from their perspective, they might, have had a difficult childhood or whatever, and they come into recovery and they deal with the stuff in their childhood. They might have stuff going on in their adulthood as well, but we're constantly silenced under the system of racism, because we're told I'll get over it, it's not that bad, and we're constantly having to justify and explain and all the rest of it how we feel. And we're not allowed to have feelings. We're not allowed to be angry about the oppression. We're not allowed to be angry about this stuff we're trying to heal from, what our ancestors couldn't heal from, and we're still trying to heal from it. So we're still constantly being silenced and shamed, not just externally, but I think a lot of us have internalised that in our families, and we do it to each other. I hear black people say this all the time. Stop being so emotional. What are you getting so emotional for? Stop crying. Stop crying. I want to give you something to cry about. So we're told this to each other all the time. Let's have a look. So, hi Beryl, thank you for joining. Let's have a look and see what you say. I tried sharing my experience of racism in the Tantra group, and the leader of the group told me that racism wasn't a thing. Tantra is also white and middle class. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's being in certain spaces that are predominantly white, and there is a thing about, you know, the whole thing about Tantra, and you know, a lot of these so-called spiritual classes, they are quite racist. They're white dominated, and they don't want to have that conversation. Spirituality in their eyes doesn't include racism. You know, it doesn't include having those sorts of conversations. So it's difficult and it's painful for us to be able to share our truth in spaces where we're constantly being told to keep quiet about our pain and our experiences. You know, and it's about finding a safe space where you can actually talk about these things, because it's not always safe to bring that stuff up and have the conversation. I know there are people that say, well, you know, we should call it out, we should say, but if it's going to keep re-traumatizing you and upsetting you every time you do this, you know, yeah, it just becomes another space of oppression, Beryl, another space of oppression. And we've got to start finding ways to have our own spaces to be able to process this stuff, so that we feel strong enough to be able to build our own spaces, and then we've got more you know, that we have more strength, more inner strength to be able to go back out and have those conversations with other people. But at the minute, a lot of us are trying to do it in isolation, so it feels really uncomfortable. You know, it does feel really uncomfortable. So yeah, I think you know, this book, and I find this a lot in a lot of the material that I read around in recovery and stuff. They talk about childhood and they talk about all of this kind of stuff, but you know, if for us, we living under the system of racism is a completely different situation. It's a completely different situation for us, because we have to still deal with the abuse. We have to still deal with the fact that we're constantly being oppressed on a daily basis. So yeah, so it says, it carries on and says, our struggles may have been as basic as having to keep our clothes clean or finding food to eat. We put all our energy into surviving. By the time we're done, we had no energy to claim our birthright, the ability to dream. And that is the truth for so many of us, that we're so, we almost get used to the oppression. We get used to being silent. We get used to not having a voice. So we don't give ourselves permission to dream or think that there is anything better for us, because we just think, oh, what's the point? What's the point? You know, because if we're constantly being told the same thing all of the time, you know, it's our birthright. The ability to dream is our birthright, but it's been knocked out of so many of us by the constant oppression that we have to live under. And we have to remember that it's coming at us from different angles. It's coming at us from the angle of, you know, the stuff that's being recycled in our families. If our families have got unresolved or unhealed pain and trauma, you know, we have to deal with it within our family situation and our relationships. If we in the community, you know, if the community is not healed, then obviously we're going to get it from community members and stuff like that, all of the bickering and stuff that goes on within different community circles. And then obviously we've got the external stuff that's happening from living under the system of racism, you know, generally, and we've got the historical stuff as well, so the stuff that's been passed down through our ancestors. So that's a lot of stuff to take on. So it makes sense that so many of us, we feel powerless. We feel powerless, and we feel like we can't thrive because we think that we're not going to be allowed to, because we're always being told that we can't do this and we can't do that. We can't do this and we can't do that. You know, it's ongoing. And so, you know, we have to really find ways to be able to start to get honest about the impact that it has on us, because it is going to have an impact on us. A lot of us just, you know, try and ignore it, think it's going to go away, or don't talk about it, just ignore it. You know, just sort of play kumbaya and everything's going to be okay, and that it's not going to impact us. I think that's why so many of us have issues around our well-being and our mental health, because you can't live under a system that is so oppressive and for it to not to have an impact on the way that we treat each other, the way that we treat ourselves. That's why I think one of the reasons why, you know, addiction, codependency, chronic people pleasing, chronic self-abandonment, all of these topics are so prominent in our communities, because at the end of the day, that pain and the pain and the vulnerability of what it means to be a black person, that stuff has to go somewhere. It doesn't just vanish off into thin air. You know, it doesn't just vanish off into thin air. So it's important for us to take the time to get honest about that. And that's one of the reasons why I do what I do. That's one of the reasons that I do what I do. One of the things that I do like a monthly, I've been doing like a monthly book club on one of Bell Hooks' books. And, you know, in that space, we have an opportunity to chat and we do homework and we're really able to talk about a lot of this stuff. Let me just read some of the comments. Let's have a look. So Black is saying, we tell ourselves and each other to just accept it, ignore it and move past it as if it's still not very real. Yeah, but we tell each other that sort of stuff all the time, because I think when people say that, it's because they don't have a solution. They don't know what else the solution is. So their solution is, well, I'm just going to deny it. I'm just going to play kumbaya. I'm just going to pretend that I don't experience racism. I don't experience racism. You know, racism isn't, you know, slavery's finished. You know, we haven't got chains on our feet anymore. So what are you talking about? You know, I've heard black people say this sort of stuff all the time. And, you know, it's a survival, I believe it's a survival technique. It's a survival thing because people don't know how to deal with the pain. They don't know how to deal with the helplessness, the powerlessness that comes with standing in the truth of what it means to look at this stuff and be honest about it. You know, so it's definitely a you know, a survival technique. So Beryl was saying, I went to see a psychologist for PTSD caused by an assault by 4 skinheads and was told that I created my own reality. Wow. I'm so sorry to hear that happened to you, Beryl, but I totally get it. And this is something else that we're going to be talking about in the conference around, you know, how to pick a you know, a decent therapist, how to pick a decent therapist that is culturally competent, because a lot of times the trainings that they go through, you know, they're created by white institutions. They're created by white institutions. So how are they going to serve the needs of us when they're not doing the work? And they might have a little section in there about diversity. A lot of them do have a little section in there about diversity, so they can tick that box. But they don't really have the cultural competency. They don't understand. They don't identify. How are they going to know? They don't identify. They don't understand. You know. So even some of the black therapists I know they don't have that cultural competency because they're not taught it in their training. You know, so this is one of the things that I'm going to be talking about. I've been in therapy for years, pretty much the whole of my recovery time. So I've had different therapists and stuff for the last sort of 9-10 years. So over the years, I've learned the types of things that are important to looking for, you know, a great therapist. So if you're interested in that, you know, sign up for the virtual conference. If you go to heal.juneallen.net, 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 that is one of the masterclasses that I'm going to be talking about in there, about how to actually pick a therapist. It's so important because at the end of the day, you end up being re-traumatized if you don't get your needs met. You're not being heard, and then what you do, you just have to walk around with the trauma of being beaten by somebody else. You know, it just drives me insane when I hear stories like that. But thank you for sharing that, Beryl. You know, thank you for sharing that, because it's not easy to sort of speak out about these things, you know, but there is support. You don't have to do this stuff by yourself, you know. Yeah, we owe it to ourselves and our ancestors to do this work. That's why I do it. That's why I do the things that I do, because, you know, it's important that we have these things in place to do for self. We do for self. I'm not asking anybody. I'm not asking white people to change. I'm not begging anybody for anything. I'm having a conversation with my people. I'm not talking to anybody else. That's not me being. I'm not talking to anybody else. It's not that. It's the conversation is not for them. It's not about them. It's not for them. And I'm not begging white supremacy or any white people for anything. This conversation is me empowering other black people, other people of colour, that they can actually change their lives. They can heal from the impact of racism. They can do service and help other people by doing their own work. That's why I do the stuff that I do. This is how you're going to learn how to thrive, by doing your own work. It's not about obsessing about what white people are doing and trying to, you know, shaming other black people for however they choose to act out their pain or whatever. That's not going to help us as a community. Empowerment requires you to do your own work before you start looking at anybody else. Don't look at anybody else. Do your own work. Do your own work, and be compassionate to those people that aren't ready to heal. Don't judge them. Be compassionate to them. That's how we learn. That's how we learn how to thrive, by doing our own work first. So the next paragraph is: today we nurture ourselves by deciding what we want the universe to send us. But I like to say ancestors. You know, so we nurture ourselves by deciding what we want the ancestors to send us, because we're open to the possibility that we can have those things. Our ancestors want us to have those things. You know, we allow ourselves to swim around in the scent of promise. We deserve it. You deserve it. We realize that wanting something is not bad. It's a healthy part of being human. And as black people, we deserve it. We've been robbed of everything: our culture, our names, our rituals, our spirituality, our gods, our children, our families, our very names. Everything has been taken from us for the last 500 years so that we don't have a sense of self. All of the times we don't have a sense of self, it means that we're able to be controlled when we don't have our sense of self. So this work is about reclaiming the self. This work is about reclaiming the self, you know? So we allow our minds and hearts to wander, because this is how we learn what we want and what we need. So we have sacred time. We have time for solitude. We go out in nature and we think, and we allow ourselves to dream again. We allow ourselves to vision about what we want. We no longer stifle ourselves with negative images and thoughts. That means also setting boundaries. You know, don't spend loads of time on social media looking at negativity. If there's negative people on your timeline that make you feel bad about yourself, about being black, unfollow them. Unfollow them. Block them. Stop. You know, being nourished is not just about what you put in your mouth. It's about what you put in your brain. We nourish ourselves, not just what we put in our mouth, but what we put in our brains. That's how we're not thriving when we constantly allow. The media is probably one of the most dangerous things. It's one of the most powerful, but also one of the most dangerous things to us, because we're fed lies about who we are, and sometimes a lot of times we absorb a lot of that stuff consciously and unconsciously about who we are. So we feel bad about who we are, and we don't even know that we feel bad about who we are until we take the time to slow down and get go into solitude and start to reflect on, actually, what do I really think about that? I just watched that thing on my timeline, on that video about, you know, this person getting beaten up by the police or whatever. How does that make me feel about my blackness? How often do you have those conversations with yourself? You might feel bad for that person, but how often do you actually sit down and think, actually, how does that make me feel about me being black? How is that going to impact how I treat my children? How is that going to impact how I have a relationship with another black person? How is it going to impact how I treat the black people that are my customers in my business? These are things that are important for us to really think about. And that is what the recovery conference, the trip to Ghana, about getting to know yourself. This is why I do the stuff that I do. Because I think we're not thinking about these things consciously. We just think, oh, you know, we try and not think about the bad thing that happened on social media, and then we go home and we just get on with it. But that stuff gets lodged. That gets lodged in our psyche, and over time that is going to make us have a negative impact on how we think about ourselves, you know. So it's important to think about those things consciously. It says, when we are blocked, we talk about it with our sponsor. The sponsor is when you're in recovery from for whatever addiction it is. A sponsor is somebody who's been in the program for longer than you, who kind of walks you through the steps, takes you through the questions and stuff like that. So it says, when we're blocked, we talk about it with our sponsor and share in meetings. We don't keep it to ourselves and allow our souls to wither with isolation. That's another thing that's difficult for us. And just like Beryl was saying, because she went to somebody for help, you went to somebody for help, and you didn't get that help. So you end up isolating yourself because you're not heard. And it's just like any other spaces that we go to, that we try and have conversations with other white people about us, about our pain and about the systems and all the rest of it. they immediately go into defense mode, and it just becomes very difficult to have these conversations. And that's why I'm quite boundaried about who I have these conversations with now when it comes to having conversations with white people, because for the same reason that I wouldn't try to convince an alcoholic to stop drinking, I don't think it's appropriate for me to keep having conversations with white people about the system of racism, because it's exhausting, especially if they're not doing the work. If they're doing the work and they're open to having a conversation that feels safe, then I'm quite open to that. But I'm not going to convince other people that are just not doing the work, that are not really interested. I'm just not going to have those conversations, because it's draining and it's re-traumatizing. And at the end of the day, my priority is not with trying to convince white people. I'm not trying to convince white people to do nothing. I'm trying to empower you. I'm trying to empower you, my people, to take responsibility for yourself. When we take care of ourselves, we can take care of each other. It's that whole thing around, when you get on the plane and you put your oxygen mask on first before you deal with anybody else. We have to do the work ourselves first, So it says we now put our needs first and are not waiting for anybody to rescue us. That's what I'm saying. And then the affirmation is, on this day, I will show up for myself by allowing myself to think of what I want and not just what I need to survive and thrive. So basically, the affirmation is all about giving yourself permission to thrive, to think again, and to start to give yourself permission to dream again. What does wellness look like to you? What does being in a healthy relationship look like? What would it look like if you gave yourself permission to think, okay, well, maybe I will put myself at the top of the list. Maybe I will put myself as a priority when it comes to my healing. Maybe I'm going to have to let go of some of the friendships and the relationships that are bringing me down, that are only interested in complaining and getting stuck in the problems. Maybe I need to start finding people that are committed to the solution. That's one of the things that's very different about a lot of the work that I do. I don't just talk about racism as a system, but I talk about solutions. I talk about tools, because at the end of the day, what's the point in keep rehashing about what white supremacy is doing? We understand that white supremacy is insane. It's savage. It's a savage system. We know that. And every day, if I want to go looking for something on social media every single day that somebody's been murdered or somebody's been abused or somebody's been beaten up if I want to go looking for that stuff, it's so easy to go and find it. But what's the solution? It's no point in us re-traumatizing ourselves about these things. What is important to happen is that I know that I can take care of my well-being by setting boundaries around that stuff. It's exactly right. Yes, black love is simply beautiful. It's about setting boundaries online and in life. Setting boundaries around those oppressive spaces, Beryl, where those conversations are very difficult, where you're not being heard. But the thing is, you've got to keep looking. You've got to keep looking, because what I've heard from other people is that they go and try and see a therapist, or they might go and go to one meeting or whatever, and they feel traumatized or something happens, and they just go back into isolation. Don't do that. You've got to keep looking, keep searching, because there's people out there. There's people out there, there's organisations out there like myself that are doing this work, that want to empower you, that are not crazy, that will hear you, that are available to you, that can be compassionate and empathetic. There are people like me out there that are doing this work. You don't have to do this stuff by yourself. It's the isolation that's driving us, that's keeping us sick. It's the isolation that's keeping us unwell. It's the isolation that's breeding, and our ability to keep hurting ourselves. We hurt ourselves when we isolate. We hurt ourselves when we isolate, and then by default we hurt those we love, because we can't connect. We can't connect to ourselves, and we can't connect to them. It's time for us to really start to take stock of what we want and what we need, and to start to dream again. You can start dreaming again and learn how to thrive. You deserve it. You deserve to thrive. But you've got to be willing to take the the next stage, to take the next risk in order to do that. The only way you're going to start to rebuild this stuff is if you start learning to take risk. And it's not easy. Because especially when you've been in situations where you're constantly being silenced and all the rest of it, and you're just thinking, oh, I'm going to have to go through this again with somebody else. But if you be more committed to the healing. Be more committed to the healing and not the people. If one person doesn't work for you, or they cross your boundary, or they don't hear you, leave that person and go and look for someone else. Be like a bulldog when it comes to this stuff, because this is your future. This is your legacy. This is your legacy. If you've got children, your children are counting on you to heal. Our ancestors are counting on you to heal. And the unborn children, the next generation of children need us. They need us to do the work that our parents couldn't do. Our ancestors need us to do the work that our parents couldn't do. There's a generation of us now that are in such a different position to be able to do this work. There's therapists out there. There's coaches out. There's people like myself that are doing this work. I'm doing this work because there's not enough of us doing it. There's not enough of us doing it. So I'm doing this work because I want you to know that there is stuff out there, and I'm creating a platform because what I didn't see out there when I was going through this stuff, I'm creating it so you people have the opportunity to learn what I learned. I'm paying it forward. That's why I do so much of these free classes and whatnot, so you can get an understanding and know that you're not by yourself. You don't have to do this stuff by yourself. You really do not have to do this stuff by yourself. And that there is hope. There is hope. If you're ready to start doing the work, you can join the conference, the virtual conference, the Racial Sobriety Rooms conference. If you think you might have an addiction, or if you think you might be codependent, you're a people pleaser, or you've got somebody in your family that you think might be an addict or whatever, come to the conference. You'll learn so much. Click the link in the bio. Go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. If you are a black woman and you want a safe space to come and hang out with other black women in the motherland with myself and my wonderful, gorgeous business partner, save up your money and come to Ghana with us in November. Save up your money and come to Ghana with us in November. If for whatever reason, if you haven't got the money, or you find it difficult, you haven't got the money to come for the conference, still click the link in the bio. There's loads of free resources. That I've got there for you. Sign up, join the mailing list. There are loads of things that are going to be happening over time. There's these live streams that I'm going to be continuing to do. You can watch the live stream. You can start doing your own little things. And when you're ready, you save up your money. You can join in. There'll be other events. There'll be other things that are happening all the time. But don't just do nothing. Do something. Don't just do nothing. Do something and sign up. Sign up for something. Sabera is saying it's also about creating our own positive mental health, without which we accumulate addictions to escape. Addictions are about escaping. For a lot of black people, addictions are about escaping the vulnerability and the pain of what it means to sit in the black body. It's uncomfortable for a lot of us to sit in our black bodies because we live under the system of racism. We live under the system of racism that tells us that being black is defective, that is wrong, that is ugly, that is violent, and all the rest of it. So of course, we are going to use addictions to self-soothe, to escape from the pain of what it means to sit in our bodies, from the pain of looking on media every 5 minutes and seeing black people getting abused. That's why a lot of us want to escape. It's not always about the substance. It's about trying to escape the vulnerability of what it means to be black. Trying to escape the pain of of not being able to trust people in your family because all of their traumas are all being recycled. So as a black person, you've got people in your family that have been abusive to you, and you've got it's white supremacy telling you that you're nothing. Of course, people are going to try and escape through addiction. People are going to try and escape through addiction. So if any of this resonates with you, click the link in the bio. Go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. I am going to be applying the replays as well, because at the minute I've just got the live conference available. There's going to be the replays are going to be available as well. I'm going to put that up today. And then also there's going to be a mastermind. I haven't told anybody about this yet, but there's going to be a mastermind as well, like ongoing after the conference, for people that want to really start doing the work. So keep an eye out for that. If you're really interested in any of those things, sign up to one of the things on the website, and then yeah, it would just you get notified. If you're on the mailing list, you're going to get notified. You know, so if there's anything that's resonated with you, if there's anything that I've said that's resonated with you, you want to inbox me about anything that you don't understand. If you know somebody that might be addicted, or you think you might have addiction issues, or you want some support and stuff like that, then yeah, you can either just inbox me and let me know, and obviously I can answer any questions and stuff if you don't feel comfortable dropping anything in the comments. Just this last comment, what does it say? These messages hit us daily. My parents were addicts, but I didn't go that route. Thankfully, definitely have to heal from the effects of racism. No, absolutely. Just remember that addiction, there's so many different ways that addiction plays itself out. It's not just about drinking drugs, you know, and it's good that you haven't gone the route in terms of I'm assuming that you'll mean substances, but you know, a side note of that, but if your parents are addicts, does that mean, you know, are you codependent? You know, could you be a codependent when you're living with other addicts? There's an impact. There's an impact of when you're around other addicts. You know, my parents are not substance abusers or drinkers, but the behaviour was some of their behaviours were addictive. You know, which means that I've you know, in order to survive, I've had to put on addictive behaviours in order to deal with it. If you watch yesterday's class was all about am I an addict? I break that down into a lot more detail about the whole thing about, you know, how do I know that I'm an addict, you know, and to think about, I talk about codependency, and I talk about different questions and stuff to ask yourself about, are your behaviours addictive or compulsive? It's not just about drinking drugs. But I hear you. Yes, Beryl, food addiction, but there's going to be somebody at the conference talking about food addiction as well. Come to the conference, people, man. Come to the conference. If you haven't signed up to the notifications already, either on Instagram or Facebook, click on the notification so you know that I'm going to be going live. So I'm going to be going live pretty much every day right up until the conference. So I'm going to be talking about a lot more of this stuff. If there's topics that you want me to talk about on these live streams, please send me a message and let me know what issues and stuff that you want me to talk about, because I can definitely do that, you know, and obviously I can incorporate that in the conference as well. So thank you so much for joining me today. I don't take for granted that you choose to spend time with me. I absolutely love what I do. I love hanging out with you. Again, put the notifications on so that you know exactly when I'm going to be going live. I'm probably going to be going live around this time every day now. Actually, 1 o'clock is quite a good, maybe 12:30, 1 o'clock is quite a good time for people to maybe have, you know, to do it in the morning. So thank you so much for joining for joining me today, everybody, and I will see you next time. All right, take care. Bye.